It brings you right back to reality.
That's right. And that's also why we can see someone that's a certain body type and that may be our body type, but they do something totally different from us, and we go, how come they can get away with that? And it's because it's who they are.
Exactly.
That's right. It's who they are, and you go, wow, I don't know why that just looks fabulous, and then I'll put it on me and go, look like a goofball.
It's on me.
I can look like a total goofball trying to do something else to say, oh, I just love it on them, but it's who they are is what I appreciate, and that's an enhancement of who they are.
Exactly. It's just an extension. It's an outer extension of just how fabulous you are.
That's right. And I wanted to get back to size because I remember having all these different suits and doing these business functions, and I had a few ladies pull me aside and say, you know, Artie, you need to get sized for a suit. And so I said, well, I know what size suit I wear. And they said, well, I don't think that you're buying the right size. And so this friend of mine, we went on and I got sized for a suit. And I was a competitive swimmer for years. But I told myself over and over again, because all my friends told me you have to back the size of Texas. You have to back the size of Texas. So in my mind, what I was doing over and over again is saying, I have a huge back. And so I went in to get fitted, and this is years later. I mean, it was enough for me to shrink because I wasn't swimming the mile anymore. So I went in and they said, what size suit do you wear? I go, I wear a size 8. And they looked at me and they said, you don't wear a size 8. So they fitted me and they said, you wear a size 4. And I went, really? And they said,
oh
yeah.
My gosh.
And I was wearing 8. Oh. And it was because I was telling myself over and over again, you have the back the size of Texas. So,
big in Texas.
And that's why I love what you say about honor where you are right now in this moment, because another thing that can happen is something has been told to a certain person over and over again, and we buy it. We say, oh, yeah, that's true. That's who I am. No, Artie isn't the back the size of Texas.
You know what? It's very true. Like, at our office, when we do our image management program, people always think, okay, we're going to go shopping. I always tell them that's the last thing we're going to do. That is like the utter last thing we're going to do. First, we're going to talk about your childhood. What were the things that you were told about yourself? When did you first find out what ugly was? When did you first find out what pretty was? When was your first kiss? When was your first boyfriend? Did anybody ever tell you you were pretty? Who was it? Was it your mother? Was it your father? What were your notions of sexy? When did you think sexy was a part of your life now? When did you start integrating sexy into your wardrobe? You need to know all these things, all these preconceived notions that we're given from outer sources, unfortunately mold us and hold on to us as we grow. So it's my job when people come into my office to chip that away and say, you know what, that's actually not true. Because being a good girl doesn't mean always being pretty. Being a good girl doesn't mean listening to everybody. That's not what it is. So much things are put upon us as children, and we take that with us. That is very heavy luggage into our adulthood. And when my clients come to me, it's basically me taking that luggage off their back. You don't need to carry this anymore. You are better, bigger, and braver than this. Get rid of this. We're putting this into the trash. We're done with this now.
That is so powerful. And it is so true. It is so true. You really do have to go back to all those things, because as you were going through the process of all the different messages and all the different things said, all of it absolutely does plant the seed.
It unfortunately becomes our foundation, which is a horrible foundation to have, because it's so rocky, it's so full of holes, so not stable. It's made out of clouds. There's no actual granite or stone in there. You can't build anything on that.
That's right. That is absolutely right. And we do carry it with us unless we do exactly what you said, chip away at it and get to the foundation of who we are.
Yeah.
Rather than all the stuff that was taught to us.
Yeah, and build stronger ones. You know, when you stop saying to yourself, you know, my back is the size of Texas, at that moment, whether you know it or not, you change. Because whenever you're saying, I'm an 8, I'm an 8, I'm an 8, and then the moment somebody of expertise said to you and showed you the fact that you were not an 8, you're a 4, everything was like a whoosh, you know what I mean? It's like, oh my God,
Oh, yeah.
All that time putting myself down for what? It's not even real.
That's right. It's really interesting how we can just let so many things go in regards to that old conditioning that's happened over and over again. So when you, for instance, sit down with a person, can you walk us through the process of finding out a little bit about chipping away at some of the things that they've been taught? What are some of the conditions that get in the way of women and men in regards to their image and being able to be the expression with the image that they're creating and sharing and wearing?
They call it image therapy because basically what we're doing, as I said, is deconstructing all of this myth. That's what I call them. I'm a big old myth buster. We take every myth, and I mean every, Artie. When I say every myth, there are days where I'll send them home with homework. I go write down every thought that you've ever had about style, fashion, sex, boys, girls, whatever. Write down every thought you've ever had. What you think looks good. Cut out pictures for me of what you think you should look like. Cut out pictures for me of what you think you look like right now. Cut out pictures for me of what you perceive your image tells people about you. Cut out pictures for me of what you want your image to be perceived as. Those are four different categories. So we sit down and we literally go through. I basically, at the end, I'm creating an album for them. And we're going to burn it. Get rid of it. But you need to see it. You need to actually go through the mourning process. Because if we do it right away, it's not going to last. You need to understand why we're doing this. Why I'm talking to you about fit. Why I'm talking to you about personality. Why it's so important to understand your colors. Why it's so important to understand your style. Why? Why is it so important? Because when you come to that crossroads, do I pick the new path or do I stick with what I know? I'm going to give you enough arsenal to take that unknown path. That's the idea.
Wow. Very, very good stuff. And so what are some examples of people that you've done this with? How have they changed?
I've had their friends call me and say to me, I've had family call me and say to me, I don't know what you've done, but thank you.
Wow.
I've had women who were just recently divorced. They raised kids for 20 years. Their husbands have left them either for another person or just because they've grown apart. Now they have to go back to work, and they still have suits from the 80s. I look like my mother. That's what they say to me. This is not going to work. And literally, it's just seeing that transformation. I tag it the ugly duckling because a lot of people that I come across, men and women, but mostly women, once we get their fit down, their style down, their personality, and their colors, once they come out the change room, I close the door, and I stand right behind them because I want that initial reaction. And once they see themselves, and I mean already really, really see themselves, they start to cry. They say to themselves, and they say to me, and they look at me straight through the mirror. They're like, Nickolette, I never knew that I can look this good. I was never asked out to prom. And I never felt love, and I always felt it because of how I looked, and I never knew that I can look this good. And then the both of us end up crying, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it's amazing because when we do get to a real deep-seated truth, and that deep-seated truth is rooted in you're wonderful just the way you are, you do. You see people express tears.
It's the core. It's the core because if you do not love yourself for every aspect you are, you will not give that out. You cannot give what you don't have. If you do not respect who you are, how you look, and what you do in life, you cannot give respect. If you do not love yourself, you cannot give love. If you are not happy with yourself, you cannot give happiness. You cannot give what you do not have.
It's not necessarily as much change. It's about who they are already. I think that a lot of people cry because they realize, oh my gosh, I am beautiful. Because everything else has been stripped away and they go, well, I can't believe it. I'm actually beautiful.